is it's so easy to get caught up into what we do as opposed to what they want. And I think at the end of the day, the more that we can let go of that egocentric piece and really focus on what they love the most and where they love to go and what they desire, I think there's no way but success from down that road.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Championship Leadership Podcast. And we got Alex Kuhn here with us today. Alex, thanks for being here.
Hey, appreciate it. And talking about one of my favorite things, champions. So I know we got a lot of people out there, so let's roll.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, Championship Leadership is the name of the podcast, right? So what comes to mind for you? What does that mean to you when you hear that?
Leadership is my favorite topic in probably all of business. I think it's literally the keystone of every business. And I actually really believe so many business coaching concept, business consulting concepts. And a lot of times, Nate, maybe this is a little bit bold, but if they don't have a leadership component to it, I actually wonder like if they're actually getting to the real meat of what actually makes businesses run, which is great people really doing great work for other people. To me, at the end of the day, like if you really have that focus on other people, making a difference, adding value, and using your skill set to impact lives, I think that any business you build is ultimately going to be successful.
Yeah, 100%, right? I mean, it's all about people in any business, really. And sometimes I think the focus shifts a little bit too much to the service of the product, but which is obviously important for sure. But it all comes down to the people and serving them and serving your clients at the highest level. And I think when we all do that, it all comes together, it all works out, right?
Right, Nate. We've been using this language, at least in our community, about that, whatever you're building, right? A program, a product. I mean, even this water cup that both of us are using for, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, are you actually just building a product or are you actually writing your love letter to your client? Because at the end of the day, is it actually something that you can fall in love with? Because at the end of the day, it's about your client falling in love. And I always love to use the analogy of, I was talking before we started here about my wife. And I think about when we first started dating, if I wrote the profile of, hey, I'm 5'10" and I've got this weight and this body fat percentage and try to use all my types of things, my wife probably would have rolled her eyes and moved on to the next profile. But, at the end of the day, everybody first and foremost really is talking about what they're looking for and what their needs are, their desires, their wants. And, as businesses, it's so easy to get caught up into what we do as opposed to what they want. And I think at the end of the day, the more that we can let go of that egocentric piece and really focus on what they love the most and where they love to go, what they desire, I think there's no way but success from down that road.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more, the listener here today, about you and what it is that you're up to, and maybe, what's that path looked like to get to where you are today?
Yeah, Nate, and we obviously both have the leadership in our titles. So,
Yeah.
I run an organization called Born to Lead, and unlike a lot of mentorship and coaching organizations where they have 7 different offers at different things, we have one track. We have what we call our Born to Lead track, and very simply is how you build your first program into 7 figures. But ultimately, for so many people in our world, our mission is very simply to do good, change lives, and impact generations. And for most of us on here, I've got 2 kids. I know you've got some kids as well. A lot of people on here, its impact isn't just making a difference for our client lives, it's making a difference for the people that we love in our lives there. And so a lot of our clients come to us and yes, we help them build those incredible service-based businesses there. But at the end of the day, what they really want to know is like, how do they actually set up that generational wealth vehicle that isn't just stocks and bonds and all the typical things. They want to know how to use that business as an asset. And one of the things that most of our higher end clients ultimately get to is they understand that saying this becomes the ATM so you can start building your generational wealth. And so we show people, for myself, I own 14 other different businesses of incredible entrepreneurs that are doing work like that. But this is my one passion. So how do you get to do what you love while also still making some incredible passive income and equity in your life?
Yeah, that's amazing. How does one find themselves? Because this is always an interesting question. I think, it's one that I get asked a lot too. Like, how did you get to do what you are today? So yeah, how did this come about? It's just because it's not an everyday career choice for most.
Yeah. I've failed a lot and I've failed quickly and I've made mistakes quickly. I think it's the biggest, people ask me what's the best advice you can be for a startup entrepreneur or any business, is that, don't worry about making mistakes. And it's easy as you grow and grow to continue to worry about making mistakes as you get better, because you think you should be more successful, as opposed to saying, what's the next mistake I can make so I can learn faster. But my journey started, I've been a coach my whole life. And when I say coach, I was actually a college swim coach before I ever did any coaching in business.
Hmm.
I left college as a pretty good swimmer and had the opportunity to either go down this management training path and looked like a great living, great life, good financial package, or I could take the $15,000 a year assistant swim coaching position out in Iowa, which we were talking about
Yeah,
before. And so the leader in me, of course, I took the assistant
of
coaching
course.
position.
Yeah,
Right. But 8 years there, and obviously had a love swim coaching. I even tell people that's where I might retire into, is just simply go back to
yeah.
coaching swimming. But and like football, basketball, like there's no multi-million-dollar contracts, and yet you still have to be on the road 100 hours a week. You still have to recruit. You still have to, mentor and advise 18 to 22-year-olds, which can be quite emotionally
Mm,
challenging.
yeah, I bet.
And so at that point, I've always knew I want to be an entrepreneur at some level. And quite frankly, I had no idea what. I had no idea what kind of entrepreneur I was going to be. But I said, you know what? I'm just going to take if I go into this further, I'm never going to leave swim coaching. So at 30, jumped into this there full time. No humongous savings, no, big role models, no Rolodex of clients. But, first year I made $4,225, doing
Right.
basically life coaching. I had no
Yeah.
idea what I was doing at that point. I just said, I'll take any client, any place, anywhere, network. I was in Panera all day, every day with 5 or 6 people drinking that, coffee and
Right.
eating that cinnamon crunch bagel that I'm just sick of now in my life. But obviously it gave me, like what I realized though is that, going through that and just continue to make mistake after mistake after mistake. The one thing I realized, and I hope people are listening to this, is that we tend to get so focused on the business tactics, strategies, and stuff that it's amazing how if you start to look at all the experiences of your life, you'll realize that business is just truly a conglomeration of building your own beautiful way of actually living and making a living in this world. And so
Mm,
it wasn't for like 3 years. It took me about 3 years to kind of get that confidence and boldness to say, I'm just going to do business my way. I'm going to
yeah.
do it from what I think's the right way. I'm going to sell what I think's the right way there. And that's when everything started to blow up.
Love it.
2015, I sold my first company, which is called Overcoming Obstacles, which was a health and wellness company, really working on emotional eating and mindset training. In 2018, after doing some freelance work, I sold a digital marketing agency. We grew it to about $50 million in the account. And then the next thing I started Born to Lead. And that was the moment where I said, you know what? I'm not doing a business to make money anymore. I'm doing a business because it's what I truly believe on this planet. And so it took me about 2 years to come up with the right branding, the right name, the idea client, and all those types of things. And so we started March of 2020. And if everybody remembers what happened
Yeah.
that fateful
Yeah.
day, fateful
Yeah.
week, everything starts to shut down. And my mind went F, like, what the heck
Hmm.
am I going to be doing here? And so we made a massive pivot, massive pivot. It was, instead of it being like, bi-weekly coaching and, working with this, I said, I'm going to turn this into like a sports team. We're going to have weekly accountability, weekly execution. It's going to be very much like if you were one of my high-end swimmers, this is how we're going to run it. We're not running it
Yeah.
like anything else. And that obviously that pivot dramatically changed the way how we approach it there, and also dramatically changed the way how we actually help clients. And 3 years later, we're helping about over 300 people all over the world through our programs. The best people from coaches to real estate agents, but really people that do the human work, because that's the people that I really think are really changing this decade of business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's incredible. I appreciate you, giving us a little bit more, of a picture of what that looks like for you. And yeah, just that experience back in March, just as many of us had to, right? We could adapt and
Mhm.
pivot. But I think that's championship leadership, finding those ways depending on the situation and what's going on in the world and all the variables around you to have some discernment and pick the best path to go
Mhm.
to help as many
100%.
people as you can. So love it.
100%.
What's what's who are maybe some championship leaders in your life that have impacted you and really more so, what are some of the characteristics that have stood out to you or that you've taken on as a leader yourself to and who you show up as?
Everyone is not as lucky as me to first and foremost have a dad and mom that were
Mm,
championship leaders at their heart. My mom worked the night shift of being a nurse for over 20 years. My dad worked the day shift. So they basically never really saw each other and tried to and raised
wow.
3 kids,
Yeah.
grew up on a farm. So we learned the value. And I still believe this is one of the best advices I've ever gotten in my life is that if you really want to live a life that you really love and that's worthwhile, you better love to work. And I don't
Mhm.
mean the hustle and grind culture that we have, but you better just love actually working there because usually work is the elixir that actually helps you get to where you want to go and get around the people you want to be in life. That's obviously an advice my parents gave to me. There's a couple other people that, whether through books, part of also growing up, my parents, they were really into Amway when I was young. They were really into that,
Yeah.
model. And obviously I know today for some people it's like, oh my gosh, Amway, that was such a con. But what it actually experienced me is it brought me in front of like these incredible motivational speakers like Les Brown, Jim
Oh, yeah.
Rohn,
Right.
Dexter Yeager, oh gosh, Charlie Tremendous Jones. If people are like, who the heck are these? But these were my like ears. This is what I was listening to in the car going to swim practice. This is what I was listening to. I was not listening to, I tell people the first actual CD I ever bought was Chumbawamba from Blues Trap. That was the first piece of music I
Yeah.
ever listened to. So you can say I kind of got brainwashed into this positivity thing, but I
What
actually
an
feel like
education, man, though, right? Yeah.
it was the best, Nate. It was the best, and I mean, even doing that now with our kids. There, I will not sing it for everybody because the last thing anybody wants to do is hear me sing. But my son knows this song that Zig Ziglar. He had this little musical tape called "Mr. Mediocrity," and it's his favorite song. And it
Awesome.
just very simply teaches. It's very simply about like, hey, trust yourself. Go for it there. And
Yeah.
there's my son singing it there. And all
Powerful.
his friends
Yeah.
are singing it now too. And I think that to
Yeah.
me is impact there,
Yeah.
from that wonderful special man. But a mentor that I think is getting a lost and the art of its lost, which I think we all can talk about leadership here, especially on this, is John Wooden. And I had a chance to
Yes.
meet John Wooden back in the early 2000s as a college coach and late 80s. He was, I mean, as bright and articulate and thoughtful as any man you'd ever come across. And so I can only imagine where he was, obviously in his prime.
Yeah.
But the
Right.
thing I think we all learn, and I think Nate, you can see it that you empathize this and share this with your audience, and I try to do with mine, is that great, have goals, have visions, have dreams, but don't forget to learn how to tie your shoes, and don't forget to learn how to actually just email people correctly. And don't forget to actually just simply write a message that people actually care about. Like make it about the other person and don't forget the steps because the result is the last indicator of success. Everything else has
Mhm.
got to come first. So those are several mentors of mine that I still listen to every single day.
John Wooden, man, that's one of the greats, and I love his book is probably one of my favorite leadership books
Mhm.
too. So yeah, incredible. What's what's the vision for you? I think also championship leaders have incredible vision. I like to use football analogies like a Bill Belichick or a Nick Saban, right? These coaches that have just done it for so long, but yet have continued to stay on the top of when the best of the best in the world are competing with them and trying to take them out every year. But I think a lot of that is attributed to many things, but vision is a big part of that, right? Just having this vision that
Mhm.
evolves and changes over time and that's big and grand that most people can't understand when they look at it, and then the courage to take action. So what's your vision, even short term, 5 maybe 10 years from now?
Yeah, and I always categorize vision very simply being the tangible outcome. It's very like, what is the goal or what's that look like, that
Yeah.
picture? And then obviously your mission is the thing you are never going to achieve, but you're always going to work towards. And so for
Yeah.
me, vision is actually pretty simple. I know what we're building behind the scenes and born to lead. I actually believe being in the business that this is actually the first decade I can think of in a long time where humanity is actually worth way more than the dollar.
Mm.
And it's actually the time for business, ultimately from a legacy perspective, to change, not from just a position of greed, from a position of corporate power, from a position of you better have enough money to go through the entire education system. But information obviously is way more apt than ever before. AI is way more easily to use than ever before. You just have the ability to use it there. So ultimately, I think actually the scales of economy in terms of actually people being able to compete is lower than it's ever been. And so for those of people that actually want to do good with their business, regardless if it's a coaching business, regardless if you're selling Nutri-Grain bars or whatever you can think of there, at the end of the day, I think there's a different culture that we can set up in business. And that's what I want to do. We have actually our Born Elite program. Of course, we're trying to get those great people through that process to succeed in business there. And at the end of the day, we're going to be the first $1 billion coaching organization. That's where we're going from in the next 10 years. Mission wise, I can say this selfishly, that I want to see how far I can grow beyond the limits of money, time, and fear. I challenge myself monthly. I have a feeling you look very fit to me. So I have a feeling you're probably like that, like you do some crazy workout stuff. And so this year I'm trying to do a 100-mile run, right? I'm doing something to just challenge myself from a physical perspective. My wife and I, we just watched Limitless, the first episode with, Chris Hemsworth.
Yep. Chris
And
Hemsworth.
the first episode was about stress proof. And just hearing some of the ticks behind that and the understanding of how you actually control your heart rate, control your breathing, control all those pieces in the most stressful situation, reminded me that no matter how much we grow from a technological perspective, we have so much to go from a humanity perspective. So that's to me, my personal mission.
I love it. That's beautiful. Yeah. And if you need if you ever want any help, I've run a number of 100-mile races. So
Yeah, there's actually
yeah,
somebody
let
I
me
know in
know.
your area that
What's
does
that?
those. And there's somebody in your area
Yeah.
that
Do you?
actually does. John Howard? Is the name ringing a bell?
Don't know him, but yeah, I know we're us crazy folks are all over the place. It's getting more and more popular for sure. I'm not breaking records, by the way, by any means, but I've finished a number of them. So
I see the watch on you there, so I have a feel
yeah, I
that.
got the Garmin on. You bet. That giveaway. What's a moment in your life? I don't know, kind of a critical moment, and we have many of them, right? But there's a number that usually stick out to where, had you decided a different path, you'd be in a very different place. We've been talking about it a lot about the last few years and the difficulty for the listener right now that might even be in that moment right now. And I think there's always power in hearing, from the guests, how they decided, how they chosen those moments to move forward, to help them maybe if that's where they're at right now. So is there a time that you can think of to talk about?
Yeah, there's actually a great exercise, and I'll do the best I can visualize it. But
Sure.
it's not my exercise. I can't remember. It was called a life exercise, where you just basically start at zero and you go to whatever age you are. You just pick points that are your low points and points that are your high
Mhm.
points there, and you just talk about it. And the funny thing is, this guy's done this thousands and thousands of times, and he said more often than not, it's only 5 points. No matter what age difference, there's 5 points, and they just change as we go through our life. That the points we thought that were so meaningful ultimately don't become as meaningful as some other points. But
Yeah, right.
I want to actually give two. And the reason why I want to give two is because I'm going to give the first one there, which is very simply the one where I was literally at the point where, overstrapped for cash. The person I thought I was going to marry left the house because she didn't believe in me as an entrepreneur back in 2012. I was literally driving to go see a client who's going to literally pay me $25 for a 3-hour session. I just needed the money. I was probably spending more money going.
$25. I love it.
Oh yeah, I was
So
desperate.
relate to that.
I
Yeah,
was
for sure.
desperate, Nate. And exit 73, Pittsburgh Cranberry exit. I got the text. I could feel it. I got the bling text message, and I knew what it was. I knew she was
Canceled on
canceling.
you.
Right. So that was a moment in my life where at our core, we have something called the commitment quotient. And the reason why I talk to people about, it's not about confidence, it's not about overcoming fear, it's just simply commitment. And that was the moment where I had to really ask myself. My mom sending me applications for jobs. Former coaches are saying, hey, you can become an assistant swim coach with us. You can get back into the game. And I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision there. Whereas, do I just want to basically live on the street if I don't make it? And that's when I said, I think earlier, where that's it. I am literally going to figure this out. I'm going to do it my way. And if it doesn't work, then great. At least I know I went out, doing it my way. But the second one I actually want to go into, which is we don't take a lot of credit, is the moment where the life looks so good, but it's not meant for you.
Yeah.
And that's when I was at the CEO of this digital marketing agency back in 2018. Today I was dating my wife, but I was in a really bad business situation, not with the right partnerships there. It was just a lot. I was not in the right position I wanted in my life, business, professionally, health wise, but everything on the outside. I mean, I was getting a lot of great recognition because I was building this huge company, get in front of major players in the business sector. But I was bawling every single night, thinking, is this what life actually
Yeah.
looks like? And that was the moment where I realized that, we all talk about success not being tied to money, but most people have to, I feel, go through that lesson of like, what happens when you're getting the money you've always wanted and you're still not happy? And that was the moment where
Yeah.
I made some massive changes and obviously doing what I do today. So yes, I do very well financially. So I don't want to sit here and disrespect anybody who's still in that struggle phase. But I also know that to me, I would never give up. I'd give this all up if I wasn't in a great relation with my kids, or I couldn't see my family, or if I couldn't give back in the way I want, or I couldn't take care of my health, and that's why I talk about
Yeah.
personal growth, still being the boundary to what I do in business.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's huge. Yeah. Beautiful. What's if as we wrap up, if there's one or two things that if the listener would to apply right now today, it would help move their life forward today, what might those be?
Hmm. First one, core of everything we teach and core philosophy. And I get more pushback on this than anything, but I believe everybody is born to lead. Yes, that's why we named our company. No matter where you are, what your background is, you are born to lead. And it's the one that some of your audience may say, no, we are made to
Sure.
be leaders. We're grow to
Right.
be leaders. But I always say, listen, understand that I am a 5'10", can't jump, and not really accurate with shooting a basketball. And no matter how well I train, I could be a good basketball player, but I'm never going to be a LeBron James in
Yeah.
basketball.
Right.
And the moment you can actually appreciate what you were born with in terms of your leadership skill, and trust that you just need that one talent, that one skill to actually create your multi-million-dollar business, that's the first thing I want. We've got a great thing on our website if you want to know exactly what that looks like. And obviously, yes, that's my shameless plug. But I do believe most people overcomplicate business because they try to go outside in, meaning let me take everything from somebody else and let me apply it into my business to work. And it's the exact opposite of what you need. You need to understand what you do great, trust that, and build everything around that, from the thing you actually sell to ultimately the team that you build, to ultimately the way you build your systems, to ultimately the way you build that message. That's the only thing you need. And it's something that I think most people just don't give themselves that trust. That's one thing I would
Yeah.
really highly recommend. And the second thing that I find that's so valuable is that we overcomplicate business because we overcomplicate how to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to make money is very simply what we've talked about at the very beginning. I know you do for your clients there, Nate, is very simply, are you writing that love letter to them? It's not about what they need. It's not about what you put into the program. It's not about the bonuses. It's not about the network. It's simply saying, what can I write and create that is the love letter they've always been seeking for themselves? And if you don't know what that is, go back to yourself a year ago and ask yourself, what would you have loved in that moment? What would you have loved for somebody to put in front of you and told you how to do it and how exactly to do it and the steps and process and methodology, and build that? To me,
Mm.
everybody that's listening here, take those two pieces of advice. I think you can
Yeah.
take it to the bank.
Absolutely. Take it to the bank and cash it.
That's right.
Alex, I appreciate your time today. I know you said website. What is the website?
We bornleaders.com. Go there, right on there. We call it Success DNA. Exactly. What are the 4 archetypes of your leadership style? This is not a personality assessment. This is not if you're an extrovert, introvert. This is actually how you operate your core operating system, meaning I'll give you a hint. I'm a natural
Yeah.
motivator. And it's not because I'm a high energy guy or a fast talker. It's because I got a really good way of getting people to buy into themselves.
Yeah.
When you know what you're great at, you ultimately will find something that works tremendously well for you.
Love it.
Bornleaders.com, Success DNA assessment. Check it out.
Yeah, we'll get that linked up and definitely go check that out. Appreciate you, Alex. Thank you so much. For the listener, don't go anywhere. We got more incredible guests just like Alex coming up in their next episode. Appreciate it. It's been an incredible time. Thank you.
Thank you.